Greetings, it's I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and once again, welcome everyone. If you're, of course, joining me live on Twitch, you've already been here for a little bit, but hello again. Always great for, sticking around for a long period of time. But if you are joining me, of course, on YouTube, where all these recordings end up after a couple of days, hey YouTube! The usual steal, liking, subscribing, ringing the bell, all those things for engagement. And my question, regardless, if you are at YouTube, for the comments, or over here on Twitch, is, have you done much adventures in your Shadowrun games in South America, and in particular Amazonia? Because that's where we're going today. We're diving into the sixth world once more, into that cyber fantasy world of Shadowrun. Diving into the future, got some magic, got some cybernetics, we're crashing them together in an awesome way once more. And of course, today is going to be a very interesting episode because I wanted to do these deeper dives into a number of countries. If you had missed my previous series, which is linked in the at the end of the video in the group of videos it is in my God, what's the word for it? Yeah, you see, me forgetting stuff, it's great. From its playlist. Oh my God, the word playlist eluded me that badly. Wow! Today is one of those days. Well, let's hope this is the only one we got for a super brain fart today. Playlist. Embarrassing. But anyway, if you want to check out the playlist, I've got all the regions and continents videos where I talk about the different countries and the different regions of the world a little bit in a more generalized way. But I wanted to do more countries that have information. And Amazonia is a country we have a lot of information about, but we also don't. Unlike something like Aslant, which we have these massive amount of paperwork on, or the United Canadian American States, the the CIS, Seattle, Denver. Those are technically parts of the cities. The California Free State, some places in Europe. There's some places that we have a lot of information on. I mean, a lot of Japan we have a lot of information on. But Amazonia is very unique because we have these bits and blasts of information about Amazonia here and there that do paint a large picture, but there is no exact book or exact place about it. When we talk about this and I dive into it, it's gonna be very interesting to see. So why don't we do that just now to help explain my point here of it's a jumbled mess which gives us the entire picture of Amazonia. I like to scream out my sources, because of course I do, because I have a bunch of them that I use, and honestly speaking, these are places that you can look. I also do recommend usually a wiki page, like the Shadowrun wiki page does a pretty good job of giving some of the basic information here, but there are plenty of other better wiki pages than the Shadowrun one. This is the unfortunate thing about the Shadowrun one, you need to look in books. The wiki pages, they're decent for some information, but the books you really have to deal with, and when it comes to researching this one. The Harlequin Adventure. Now, this is an adventure. Is it helpful? Yes and no. The reason why I'm shouting this one out is if you want a picture of how Amazonia is in an adventure setting, then this is the book you would look into. There's a number of chapters and parts of the story that deal with your characters being in Amazonia. So it does paint a pretty decent picture of being in there. Corporate downloads, it's dealing with the other corporations. Aslant is a corporation and a country, and they are kind of a perpetual disagreement / Cold War / Hot War / some kind of battle with Amazonia in Colombia. And so, yeah, that's where you're getting the information. If it's secondhand information, but it's information on it. The 3rd edition book does provide some information about an important aspect of Amazonia, its Great Dragon Leader. Not a lot, but a little bit. And that's where we're going to break down today, is we're going to start with the country, the dragon, and their major city. The Year of the Comet does provide a little bit more information too. Again, it's not a lot. And then Cyber Pirates, again, this is cyber pirates is because of the ghost cartels in places like Colombia that we learn about Amazonia. And then, of course, the Underworld Sourcebook, which was a book that I also used for some things. That also deals with the ghost cartels and stuff like that. So here is the interesting flag of Amazonia. It's the Amazon River. I do like it. So, it is a awakened nation. What do I mean by that? Is a nation run by magic. That's what an awakened nation is in Shadowrun. And of course, this is one of the few countries to have as head of state a dragon, Hulapa. And this thing is, yes, there are dragons that are involved in states or in important positions, but this one, Hulapa, really controls the entire thing. So, it's the northeastern section of South America. Its territory spreads over the Orinoco and Amazonian river basins and the Brazilian plateaus. It enclaves Venezuela and has land borders with French Guiana, Aslant, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay. So this is basically what became of Brazil more than anything. That's what you have to think of Amazonia. But it does kind of entail the borders have kind of shifted a little bit over the, 70-ish years or so since the changes in history. Its capital is Manus. We're not going to talk about Manus today. It is known to have a population over 200 million, and that's a little bit about the information as the basic country information that we know of. There isn't a lot of natural country, statistics, like their per capita, ethnic groups, languages, all these kind of things aren't really talked about. Again, that's the paradox of Amazonia. We know a bunch, but we also don't know a bunch. Anyway, so, for the most part, the Amazon jungle, the Brazilian plateau, is Amazonia. In the last 30 years or so, in fact, over the time period that it's been its own country, the Amazonian jungle has become very strong. It has regrown because of the magical efforts and magical energies in there as an awakened nation, and so it is a very jungle place. There are some urban areas. The main urban area, which we will talk about today, is Metropole. Metropole is an urban area that is like Rio Paulo, also known as. It's where San Paulo and Rio de Janeiro were, and they've united into one mega city. And it's got a lot of the population of the country. It is a very populated area, and it's the main urban area. So, what's the history of Amazonia? Now, there is a history of this related to Hulapa, and we're going to talk about Hulapa separately, as I said, in a moment, because it is deeply involved here, but let's start out with the basics. In 2034, so this is this is 30 or so years ago, we're in the, I think, 2070s in Shadowrun 6th edition. 3 great dragons captured the city of Brasilia, and the Brazilian government was forced to surrender. And in aftermath of his revolution, Hulapa declared the new nation of Amazonia. So the destruction of Brazil and the creation of Amazonia happened here. Next big thing, 2049. It annexes Venezuela and half of Colombia. The following year, Aslant forces seize a portion of Venezuela from Amazonia. That's the big battle that's going on in that region, where Colombia still kind of exists, yet doesn't exist. It still kind of has its government / sort of has its territories, but also doesn't, because there's 2 invading forces kind of occupying them, and yeah, it's just not doing well for them. Anyway, so tensions were high for near on 25, 30 years in between there, between Aslan and Amazonia. Extensive PR campaigns launch against each other, and then we get into 2073. So this is now 24 years later, and the war between them in the Amazon goes hot over Bogota. Amazonia is on a crusade to preserve the ecology of the rainforest, pushing forward that ideal that the Amazon is a living thing and deserves not to be raped, the rape of the land, that kind of terming. While this may not seem like an intentional idea, many of the Amazonian soldiers are very overzealous in their beliefs, and basically a lot of citizens of Bogota are unwilling to let their homes return to the rainforests and face basically torture and abuse by the hands of zealous Amazonian fighters. So, yeah. That becomes the Amazonian War, which raged for 3 years in hot. From approximately, the declaration was technically in 2072, and this is the main turning point about these two things. And Aslan officially declared war on Amazonia. And it just became Bogota was the center of that war. Then we get to 2074, the tide kind of turns in a way. There's an intelligence coup on the Aslan side. They punch through the Amazonian lines and restore their borders to what they had at the beginning of 2073. Basically, Amazonia was hammering them back throughout of 2073. And yeah, Aslan and Amazonia forces just are doing horrible things to Bogota. So, yeah. There was destruction of many Amazonia depots' bases, killing hundreds. Attack on their supply line. They held on to Bogota, but they had to pull back even farther to their 2071 border. There was a counterattack with the dragon Sirug, an armor of dragons in Draco form, attacking Aslan cities. They launched Operation Marauder to take down Sirug, battled on a stronghold near Roswell, and destroyed his horde. So he was taken down finally. And then in the city of Bogota, there was a big attack there. They lured the Amazonian forces to attack the city in October 3rd of 2074, setting into a trap. It was a bloodbath for both sides. Parts of the city were destroyed. Massive civilian casualties. Atrocities. And UN finally intervened, sending a peacekeeping force in, and they agreed to a ceasefire on the 28th of October, which became official on the 29th. Of course, Aslan was the winner in the war. It got Bogota, and we're going to Cali. And there's a new border recognized by Aslan, the UN, and Amazonia established 60 kilometers past the 2071 border in Aslan's favor, and a 3-kilometer buffer zone created between them. And the thing is, because of a lot of the... yes, Aslan was also responsible for many terrible things during this war, but Amazonia was worse. So Aslan became kind of looking like and as technology came out looking like heroes in the end of this. So, yeah. That's basically the current history of Amazonia as we know it. And it doesn't mean we might not get another battle between Amazonia and Aslan, but, yeah. And poor Bogota is now being... horrible things happen to them and passed around between them, and, it's a city in Colombia. So, Colombia is kind of conquered still. Keep that in mind. Let's talk politics, because we do know some politics about Amazonia. It's mainly dominated by feathered serpents, of course, led by Great Dragon Hulapa, who is a feathered serpent himself. Awakened sentient creatures and shamans have a great role in their society, too. According to their things, Hulapa is this Amazonia's spokesbeing. There are rumored to be backing eco-cells against Satyr-Krupp in Africa and Europe. And they do have some relations with Germany, which you can always check the German book to see about that. And, of course, I've been showing off their flag, which looks like it's part of a simply colored map of the Amazon rainforest. So Amazonia has not signed the Business Recognition Accords, as technology is banned from conducting business in the country, which has led to the closure of embracer factories owned by Dassault, a subsidiary of them. It does not recognize because it does not recognize the business recognition accords, the corporate court standing for the meaning of corporate extraterritoriality. So that just basically means the rules of the corporate court are not recognized there. So if you are a corporation doing business in Axe technology, no, you're not going to get the same protections because the country itself has said it does not recognize the business recognition accords, which were put out in 2042. I haven't talked a lot about big businesses in Shadowrun yet. I might do that at some point in time and talk about the big companies, past and new and current. Maybe. Now, there is a presence of Novatech, who is willing to go against that entire thing and not have that extraterritoriality protection that the corporate court normally gives to countries that recognize the business recognition accords. Again, like, you don't have you're not your own nation, kind of, as a course, but Novatech is willing to basically not have those protections for being in the country. They do have the Alan Kartra launch site as infrastructure, and in 2064, they hosted the World Cup. And there are Ghost Cartos there. Now, let's move on from the basics of the country, because we have to talk about our good of friend here, the Great Feathered Serpent, Hulapa. We got to. So, Hulapa is intrinsically linked to Amazonia. Hulapa rules the place. It's a male great dragon, feathered serpent variety. He's described as predominantly dark green with brilliant colored feathers. He does not typically assume a metahuman form. He has a translator named Maria Lucasen, who's an eco-activist shaman who was formerly Mexican before Aslan was formed. Hulapa has a very strong ecological agenda, and his policies in Amazonia reflect this. A lot of eco-groups support him, and he has a large army of Amazon Awakened, shapeshifters, Nagas, Harpies, Leshies, Marrow, Wyverns, Free Spirits, and again, his main rival is, Aslan and Ass Technology. He appeared in 2012, in January, spotted in the Yucatan Peninsula, as he visited the ruins of Chichen Itza. He gave no interviews and was not seen until 2034, when he and those other great dragons had an alliance against Brazil. And of course, conquered it and created Amazonia. Several nations in South America were originally annexed as part of that, which blocked, of course, Aslan's head into South America, hence the... Yeah, we get the entire battle between them. We've talked about that already now. Now, he has gotten a gift, in a way, from Dunkelzin. In 2057, in his will, Dunkelzin left Hulapa the elemental scrolls of Aklear, and granted the Pale Orchard and Ashes the First Tree to the country of Amazonia. I don't know what any of those things are. I'm going to tell you that now. I'll have to research those things much deeper, or you'll have to do it. They're magic stuff. So, Hulapa is closely allied with other great dragons that helped him take over Amazonia. Of course, Sirug, and another great feathered serpent, who's possibly Aralash. He has favorable relations with Hetzabi and Mujaji, and may seek an alliance with Ghostwalker, because they both hate Aslan. He does remain aloof of other dragons in general, and kind of isolates that there. And of course, Sirug didn't die in the battle with Aslan. I should mention that, just because we did talk about the Great War, where they did manage to destroy his dragon forces and fell him to the ground. He disappeared before he was able to be finished off. So the Great Dragon, Sirug, did survive. Just as a note. Anyway. But that's Hulapa. And it does give us a little bit more information about a leader of this place there and understanding his position. And let's talk about Metropole. The last main topic I want to talk about here, because it's the major city or urban center in all of Amazonia. Riopol is the biggest sprawl. Now, the thing is, when I mentioned it's estimated there's 200 million people within Amazonia, it's because Metropole has an estimated population of 200 million people. It's the largest sprawl in the world. Remember, it's taking up the region of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. I would recommend taking a look at a Brazil map, just to get an idea of how big that is, of an area. It's a big area. I'm taking a look at this map here too. It is approximately, between São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, is, if you're talking about US here, like 200 miles. Think about that. 200 miles of one massive urban sprawl. That's why we don't know the real population of Amazonia, but we know it's big, and we know it because most people probably live here in this sprawl. Basically, the entire country's population, and probably the region's population, was shoved into this one sprawl to keep nature pretty good. Estimated 200 million people. It's a big area, though. Riopol is a massive sprawl, the biggest in the Sixth World. Basically, it's because every non-awakened being was forced out of the interior of the Amazon. They began occupying other major cities, Fortaleza, Salvador, Recife, Porto Alegre, but eventually most of the population moved over to this area, access. And so much people in space relatively made up both city sprawls. To each other, they joined. Basically, the sprawls of these cities, the extents of these cities, swelled so much they joined together into this massive place that it's got to be insane. We know some basics about this place, enough that we can kind of give this information. And again, I will talk about the population numbers and stuff there too in a minute. There's some inconsistencies related to that, but the number 200 million is given out there. It's kind of funny. We'll talk about it. So it's a known fact that the people of the sprawl tend to identify themselves as I'm going to butcher these, Carioocas, hailing from Old Rio de Janeiro, or Paulistas, hailing from the São Paulo side. It's basically old rivalries between the cities they had, and it has different degrees of seriousness between people. It is a free enclave, Metropole. Basically, Amazonia lets anything go there business-wise as long as it stays within city limits. Little internal politics have been explored, but it considers no different than any city-state like Seattle, Berlin. It is of note that the city's limits don't grow to the sides. So, the city's limits have hit their limits. You can only get there by plane or boat. The highway network that crisscrossed the old Brazil is useless now, thanks to the Forest 3 grow. So if you want to get there, boat or plane. The ghost cartels compete with the most powerful gang, Commando Verde, for control of the various criminal rackets. There are several gangs of thousands of members, of which the Commando Verde is one of them. The city has thousands of gangs, too. And when it comes to foreign syndicates, of course, there is a Yakuza clan firmly entrenched in the city, though it does not challenge the Ghost cartels or Commando Verde. And Zobop has recently established a foothold in the city, too. Let's talk about the population and some inconsistencies before we end today. So, the largest city in the world is, from the Urban Sprawl Guide, this information, comparing to New York City at 44 million. The numbers are wonky, basically. It is assumed that because the Hoopla and company drove the former inhabitants of Brazil here, 20 million is kind of a weird number. Apparently, the original developer said it was a typo, and it's kept in the same books. So, really, it is the largest sprawl in the world. It is a massive area. It probably has a huge population, and it does have everybody that basically lived in Brazil, not inland, basically driven here. So the question is, how really big is the city? You can go for the 200 million if you really want. You can go for a smaller number, and it'd probably be reasonable. It's this weird thing of, it's the only population estimate we have, and then questioning how many people were in Brazil, and, how many people have been thrown there, and there was also a lot of things that happened, but populations have gone up since a lot of the problems. Yeah. I mean, like, if I was to look up Brazil's current population, which I'm actually going to look up here. What's your estimated population? 203 million as of 2022 census. Okay. So that's the thing is, it's not unreasonable. Yes, a lot of things happened that caused a lot of populations dropped. Did populations grow? Yes. Have there been a lot of immigrants to Brazil? Yeah. A lot of people have moved in too. Especially in the metropole. A lot of people coming in for companies and things that are taking advantage of the fact that it's its own little nation there. Certainly megacorps, not having that protection, can move into metropole, except as technology, and just do business there as long as they are within the city. Gangs move there. Lots of people move there. Populations from a lot of the region have moved there. And remember, the region that they control spread. So, I'd say, like, if you want to drop that number, 100 million still would be kind of actually reasonable. Honestly. It is also, like, again, like 200 miles of sprawl. Of urban city sprawl that is spread. That's a lot of space. To squeeze a lot of people into, big cities squeeze a lot of people into them even nowadays. So, it's a massive sprawl. I don't know, up to you how you want to take the numbers for that city in Amazonia. But probably, like, honestly speaking, 90 to 95% of the population of the entire country is there. You're not going to deny that. But there you go. We talked about Amazonia today. I hope you enjoyed learning about them. It's an interesting nation, as I said. At the beginning, I specified that this is a very interesting nation because we have a bunch of information, but we don't have a bunch of information, too. We have never had a specific book that has been, here's Amazonia. Here's everything you need to know about it. We've had some stuff that is like, a good example is, there is a smaller publication for Metropole. I didn't show it off here, because, again, Metropole was a side thing here. It wasn't the direct thing for us to talk about. But there is a book called Shadows in Focus, City by the Shadow, Metropole, from 5th edition. I don't have a copy of this book. It's only 31 pages. It's a 5th edition book. It introduces you to Metropole. Again, it's one city. It's not the entire nation. It doesn't reflect the entire nation very heavily. That's why I didn't really talk about it till now. But that gives us Metropole as one thing, one city. 31 pages is a pretty good thing to focus on such a massive city. And yes, population consistencies and all. But it does reflect on that we have these chunks of Amazonia. We have the history of this great dragon which leads it, which gives us a lot of information. We have information because of the battles with Aslant, because of what they're doing with other nations in the regions, because of things like the ghost cartels and their control over a lot of the regions, criminal activities within South America. We have this stuff which gives us these little snippets of information to build a picture of Amazonia, but it doesn't give us the whole picture. That's one of those issues about it. Like, I looked up so many books about it. The Harlequin book gave me some good information. Cyber piracy, talking about how, like, unless you're going to Metropole, Amazonia is incredibly restrictive, and to the extreme, on traveling anywhere into the interior. Metropole you can get into. Anywhere else, Amazonia has it locked down and controlled powerfully. It's just such interesting things. That deals with the underworld a lot. Learning about the ghost cartels could give you some more about it. These are all little details that come together to build a picture of Amazonia when we don't have the full answer. We have, like, 3/4 of the answer? We have enough that I can have this video here. I can talk about Amazonia. I can teach you about Amazonia. But there's so many questions left over. There's so many questions about many regions of Shadowrun that I've always said require some more information. I would love to have them. Like a Shadows of South America. We've got a Shadows of Europe, Shadows of Asia, you know. Why not, you know, Africa, South America? They could use some love. We want to know more about them. But regardless, though, I hope you enjoyed learning about Amazonia. It's an interesting place, and honestly, as much as a lot of the country isn't really set for shadowrunning, unless you're doing something where you're breaking into those borders and dealing with the Amazonia forces to do something secretive, aka the Harlequin book, then Metropole actually might be a really great place for an adventure. And yeah, getting that 31-page book, if I got that 31-page book and had it and been able to talk about it more, I might have discussed it a little bit more. But I don't have that one, you know, unfortunately. So what am I going to do? I did as much research as I could for today, and I hope you learned enough. If you want to see more tabletop stuff, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, early afternoon, Saturdays, late morning, every time, all my time periods are EST, just keep that in mind. On Wednesdays, I have a live play of a role-playing game, Pathfinder 1st Edition, Crimson Queen, 9 p.m. EST. I have a discussion show on Saturdays, 6 p.m. Check that out. That's the basic schedule for tabletop stuff. We talk about tabletop news of the week and more. And anything that goes up that's there goes up on YouTube. So if you're joining me live on Twitch, hey Twitch, come on, hang out. Or you can always check it out on YouTube later on. I do other stuff online on Twitch, but most of you people that are watching these videos that aren't here with me live are doing so because you're just here on YouTube. But anyway, all right, everybody, I'm going to get running. Oh, social media link down below, Twitter.com and Discord. Until the next time I talk about Shadowrun, the Sixth World, anything like that, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.